Hi everybody. Welcome back to the now times. It's not the summer of 2016 anymore. I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that was a fun, cool thing for you to be able to watch. I feel so glad to be able to facilitate stuff like that, to be able to play in that space with such like smart, awesome people. I am a very lucky human. And it brings me deep, powerful joy to be able to share that stuff with all y'all. So, thank you so much for coming and watching that rebroadcast. For people who are might have missed the beginning or who's curious about getting to see more of that panel, you can watch it. I think UGR has it on YouTube now. I'll put it on my YouTube channel. Obviously, it'll be in the VOD for my channel. You know, it'll be accessible to everybody. Sojourner, welcome back. Thank you. So I mean, I wanted to, so part of, and this, I don't know, maybe this is going to sound self-involved, but like part of why I wanted to rebroadcast it is because people were asking, like, after the panel, what I thought about some of these things or what I had to say about them. Because, you know, part of your job as a moderator is to shut up. Kush Cat, welcome back. Thank you. Part of your job as a moderator is just shut the fuck up and like highlight your co-panelists and make them shine, right? It's like exactly like being a dungeon master. So people ask me sometimes, they're like, oh, you know, you did a really good job moderating that panel. You're really good on panels. You're, you know, where do you learn those skills? Why does Desert Roar love you so much? Well, the answer is Dungeons and Dragons, kids. Dungeons and fucking Dragons. It's exactly the same skill set. It's about being flexible, and it's about giving people an opportunity to be awesome. Matt Marek, welcome back. Thank you. So the jam there is to give people the opportunity to come up with cool things to say by way of your prompts, to say, okay, think about this. Now what do you do? So it's totally the same. So it's not an impossible skill. You two can do it. But as moderator, I didn't really get to like talk that much about, you know, my thoughts or feelings on some of this stuff, and people were asking. So if you have questions, I know chat's going a little fast right now, but if you have questions about like any of these topics, I tried to answer some of it in chat. We'll hang out for like 15 or 20 minutes before we start playing some Jackbox games. So if you have questions about, I don't know, LGBT stuff and streaming and my thoughts and feelings about that, or panels or conventions, I'm at your disposal. You know, I think the thing about these kinds of panels, this sort of content, is that there are people who don't have exposure to this kind of stuff. Je suis un bear. Space Doggy, welcome back. You know, there are people that just don't get exposed to different kinds of people, right? Like I grew up. Let me tell you about when I was a kid. So I grew up in a town called Kelowna, and Kelowna is like big-ish for you know, for a British Columbia town, but it's very white. Or it was when I was growing up there. I think it's diversified somewhat. It's very white, pretty conservative, you know. And the people that I grew up around, you know, I didn't know very many non-white, non-straight people. And so moving to the big city, right? Moving to Vancouver was a big change for me. It was a big thing. And I look back on what I was like when I was 15 or 16, and I've always been like pretty left of center. And I mean, I've always been like, let's be real, you know, I've always been a little queer. But it's the way that I've approached that stuff that's changed, right? And I want to give other people the opportunity to be exposed to things that as a kid, like I didn't have Twitch, I didn't have Twitter, I didn't have the internet in the way that it exists now. Yes, I'm old. I know. But you know, it's a thing. And I think that we have this platform, we have these tools. And for me, I want to expose as many people to cool humans like Anne and Elf and UGR that they might not get exposed to otherwise. And for me, one of the most rewarding things about doing all of this stuff, and by that I mean like streaming and being like visibly and vocally out on Twitch, is when someone says like, hey, I live in a small town in Poland and I've never met a gay person before, let alone like a black person. And the fact that you've turned me on to these like different kinds of people, this diverse cast of human beings that exist in the world, is really meaningful for me. And that stuff feels so good. So that's why I do this stuff. Because I know what it's like to come from a place of ignorance and try to overcome that. So let's answer some questions. So Clay 666 or CLLE 666. You said you never really come out to your parents. Do you wonder if they watch your content online and may have found out there? Well, like, so, I mean, I'm not ignorant. I'm vocal about my identity. I know that it's public. It's part of the public record, right? Like, you can go to my Twitter and it's right there in the header. And so I'm sure, I'm not dumb. Like, I'm sure that they know, and that's fine. What I mean is that the traditional conversation of I'm going to come out now, we're going to have that talk, for me has never really happened. And in part because I don't know that it needs to. The relationship that I have with my parents, it isn't a thing that I feel like I need to talk about with them. But also because I don't want that conversation to be, hey mom, hey dad, I'm queer. And for them to be, okay, what does that mean, right? Because I think that this happens a lot when people are coming out to their relatives, to their friends, whatever. The onus of work falls on the person coming out, and they're already in a position of emotional vulnerability, right? Like, coming out is a very real thing that can be dangerous for some people, right? Depending on where you live, what your situation is like, it can be a dangerous choice to make. And I feel like a lot of the time people compound that by expecting them to explain what that means. Now, it's not going to be a dangerous situation for me because I'm protected by all kinds of privilege, but there's still an emotional barrier for me where I don't want to have to explain what like queerness is, and I don't want to go through having to explain like how non-monogamy affects my life and like do all of that stuff because it's so much work. If you're, here's some advice. So if you're a person to whom someone comes out, if you have a friend who's like, hey, I've been struggling with this for a long time, or maybe I haven't, or whatever, I've had this revelation, I want to share it with you. I'm non-binary and I am identify as queer. Thank them, embrace that risk they've taken, shower them with love and support, and then do some research, right? Go read up on your own. Don't make them do that work, because that's so much pressure. It's so much work. Feebles, the Dirkster. Sorry, I missed it. I missed your sub. I was talking. Thank you for subscribing. So CJ Hamster asked, do you ever explore characters in role-playing games who have different sexual gender orientations than me? Do you think that's a healthy way to explore different points of view? Yeah, I mean, I role-play straight people all the time. Right? Like, I mean, it's not that unusual to think that if I can pretend to be an elf, that I could pretend to be a straight person, or someone who grew up in a different culture than I did, because I wasn't born in Waterdeep, right? Shadowrun isn't real, and Andoni doesn't exist, but we portray things that are not us all the time. And I think if you do it right, if you do research, if you read, if you talk to people, and you learn about the kinds of things you're trying to emulate, you can be better at portraying those kinds of people. And I think that it's healthy. You put yourself in the mindset of someone that you're not. And even if you screw it up, and you will screw it up, right? Give yourself room to mess that up. And that's okay. That's a thing. But apologize and fix it if you do, if you hurt somebody by accident, by your portrayal of a culture. But like, the thing is, just learning enough about it, just doing the research and reading stuff is going to make you a better person, right? Like my big analogy on this one is that, 2 years ago, I knew next to nothing about Islam, like next to nothing. I knew it existed. I knew it was a religion that occurred in parts of the world. It's huge. It's everywhere. I don't know if you know this. There are Muslim people all over the place, but I never connected with it in any meaningful way. But playing Swan Song and engaging a fictional culture based on a real world thing and wanting to treat it with respect, I dug into that and I learned so much about Islam that I never would have before. So let role-playing games, let portrayal of things that are not you guide you into a new space of knowing about shit. It's great. It's so great. I love it. Give yourself the opportunity to do that. Arokiel, welcome to the squad. Thank you. Cowboy Bebopper asked, how does it feel watching yourself at events or during content like this? Is it embarrassing or you take pride in joy? Okay, so here's what's embarrassing. What's embarrassing isn't watching it. What's embarrassing is how hard I laugh at my own jokes. That is what's embarrassing. Like I've managed over, and I think this is a thing that happens to most people. I think that I've gotten used to hearing my own voice. I've gotten used to seeing myself portrayed in media, at least from the shoulders up. When I was doing my Seattle vlog, it's really weird seeing my entire body in a shot. I'm not used to that yet, but I've finally kind of managed to internalize that the me in my chair that I'm embodying now and the me on the screen that I can watch later, it's the same person. In the sense that the identity is the same and that I made that thing and that it doesn't feel alienating to me any more than being a person in a body feels alienating. So like, yeah, I wouldn't say that I feel embarrassed. Like if I stumble or I see myself saying something that I now don't agree with, right? I watch old episodes of like Swan Song, for example, which is like the first kind of examples of me on the internet in that way. I don't feel embarrassed, but I recognize that I'm a different person than I used to be. It's the same as getting a tattoo. So bear with me. You get a tattoo and you care about the thing that you're getting tattooed on you at the time, right? And maybe you're 18, maybe you have questionable taste in, I don't know, music or art or aesthetics. You get a tattoo that now when you're 25 or 30 or whatever, and you look at it and you're like, maybe I don't like that now. You can still recognize that it's a part of who you were at the time, right? You can never step into the same stream twice, in the sense that I don't think a person is ever the same, and acknowledging who you were is an important part of being true to who you are now in your real life. Yeah. So I hope that's an answer that that is a thing for you. I hope it helps. So let's see. Matsuheho asked, being a member of the LGBTQ community, should we speak up against the militant left social justice warrior culture, which means things like die cis scum, take things like die cis scum seriously, and in my mind tries to silence everyone not of their opinion. So I think here's the thing, right? Okay, so this idea of social justice warriors and the militant left and all of this, it's not as real a thing as people think that it is. It's just that there's a divisiveness online where drifting even slightly in one direction or another can get you branded as being this anathema, and that I don't think it's safe for discourse to think about things in that black and white, right? I think also that the discourse of the internet, Twitter and Tumblr especially, lean into hyperbole really aggressively. And I think that hyperbole is just a thing that is a part of the conversation. I think this is a really complex issue and dives quite deep into the way that humans communicate about things. I've been accused of that stuff by people who I might consider diametrically opposed to me philosophically or politically. But I think you have to take all internet discourse with a grain of salt. You have to remember that people will go to the most hyperbolic place right away. That'll be the place that they go. So I think that not policing people's tone in the way that they talk, acknowledging people's experiences as being real, but also acknowledging that like a face-to-face conversation and a Twitter conversation are going to be different. And that we have to remember that the people that we're talking to, and I think this is across the board, we have to remember that the people that we talk to on the internet are still people somewhere buried deep down across the broadbands. They're humans at the other end of the keyboard, or in my case, camera and microphone. And so dismissing someone as being a certain type of person doesn't make sense for engaging in discourse. Don't put up with bullshit, right? If someone is being harmful, don't let that shit fly. But also, you know, leave room for safe discourse, right? Treat it personally. Treat people like humans. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. Let's see what else. I'm like way behind on chat. Y'all keep chatting. I will attend to you as I can. Let's see. Let's see here. Who has questions? Who has questions for me? Oh, look at you. You're all talking about stuff. Yeah, here we go. All right. Captain James, welcome back. Welcome back. Everybody's making fun of me for laughing at my own jokes. Seriously, it's bad. It's really bad. I totally do that. Do I have any tattoos that I regret? No. I regret is not a feeling I'm well acquainted with. People will often say to me, because I'm like very visibly tattooed, people will say to me, you know, I want to get a tattoo. I've never got a tattoo before. I'm really nervous because, you know, it'll be forever. And what if I don't like it? And I'm like, A, you like it now, and later you can afford some slack for present you, right? You can be like, I liked it. That's okay. Also, tattoos don't last forever. You're going to die, and then you'll be dead. So it's fine. That's all. That's all. Your body will die, and that's okay. That's just a thing. The Jacob Gantz, where did I get my sweater? Well, I got it at H&M. That's it. There's no story behind my sweater. It's just a nice sweater that I got at H&M. I like it. This is a good question. Okay, so Dr. Something Pants, do you think there's room for more explicitly political Twitch streamers? Yes. Absolutely. There's a God, you know, politics is not considered a profitable thing to discuss on Twitch. I think it's alienating. It is scary. It's divisive. It leads to fighting. Because most of Twitch's audience comes from America, it tends to be very partisan and becomes about identity politics. And so, you know, I think that people are scared to be political on Twitch, and for good reason. This is not me criticizing them. I feel like silence is political. I think that not talking about politics is a choice people make, but that is a choice. You're choosing not to talk. And I think that silence is a privileged position. I think that the more in a position of power you are in the world, the easier silence is for you, because of the whole, it doesn't affect me personally, so I can say, let's not talk about it, right? Let's not talk about racism. Doesn't affect me. Let's not talk about classism. I've got enough stuff to get by, right? But I think that it's the inverse that is what people are responsible for. I think the inverse is more true. I think that the people who are in more privileged positions should be more willing to discuss these kinds of things, to talk about politics. And I mean, you know me, right? Like I'm happy and eager to discuss my thoughts on politics. I also think, you know what? I also think that people think of politics in a very American way. I think people think of politics as being like, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Did you vote for Trump? Let's talk about the American political system. Let's talk about this one specific method of democracy, where I think like there would be room for, obviously Twitch has dipped their toe into that, right? They streamed the national conventions. I think there's room for political commentary shows on Twitch. I don't think Twitch wants to be seen as a platform for political discourse because it's only a little bit of a jump from let's show the national conventions to here's a Twitch channel hosted by some shitlord member of the alt-right spewing vitriol and garbage under the auspices of free speech. So it's a dangerous choice to make given the political climate, but I also think that all streamers to some degree or another carry their personal politics into their stream. I think that the way that we are governed and the way that we govern ourselves, and honestly, there's governance in chat, right? Like mods and streamers and subs and lurkers and viewers all create an inherent power dynamic that a lot of people just don't acknowledge as being political. So there's that aspect of it too. That's a thing. It's definitely 100% a thing. So yes, I think there is room, but that people need to think about politics more broadly because they're already kind of doing it. Oh yeah, so people are noticing my tattoos. Yeah, the green screen just cuts holes in me. That's horrifying. August Sunday asked on the topic of tattoos, have you ever tried to go to an onsen in Japan? No. So when I was in Japan, they still enforce the no tattoos rule in the onsen. So, okay, if you're not A, familiar with onsen, B, a total weeb, or C, know how tattoos and onsen interact. In Japan, there is a sort of culturally enforced no tattoos in the hot springs rule. An onsen is like a hot spring spa kind of thing. They're really nice. We have similar things in North America, but we don't call them that obviously because it's a Japanese word. But because of culturally the history of tattoos in Japan and how generally they're associated with organized crime, with the Yakuza, a lot of onsen carry that cultural weight into their rules, and they say you're not allowed in the onsen if you have visible tattoos. I had too much shit to do the last 2 times I was in Japan, so I never bothered going, but I would like to, and I understand there are more modern onsen in Japan that allow visitors with tattoos, but it's the old ones you want to go to. It's an example of how just because things are one way in one country doesn't mean that they are that way in another. I think it's interesting, and honestly, for me, respecting that cultural taboo is more important than like kicking up a big stink about it. I can go to a hot spring here and not have to make a big deal about it. It sucks, but I don't feel, I think having tattoos is not a method of being marginalized. It's a choice that I made, and I recognize that it affects the way I move through the world. Let's see. Anybody else got questions for me? If you have questions, adding me is the smartest way to do it, because otherwise I'll miss if you're asking me a question. This is a good one. So on the topic of politics, Mr. Gray asked more about anarchism than the LGBT stuff from before, but has your anarchism been reflected in games that you run other than Shadowrun? I mean, yeah, Shadowrun, despite there being a game called Shadowrun Anarchy, I don't think my anarchist leanings got into into Shadowrun, into Mirror Shades very much, but definitely in Swansong. Swansong feels like a very political and philosophical game for me. So I definitely think that my anarchism, especially my like anti-capitalism, drifted into that game world. The world of Swansong is an anarcho-capitalist mess. It's an Ayn Randian dystopian universe, right? Because there's no authority. There are fractured communities, but mostly the thing that drives the universe is commerce. And you can only get justice if you can afford it in that world. If you've noticed watching it, and it's definitely a thing that came up in that game, though quite subtly. I don't think, and I mean, I guess there's some of that politics. You can watch, if you've been watching the Apocalypse World, the Roll20 Presents Apocalypse World, part of that game, you know, above and beyond the like Cronenbergian body horror and all that stuff, part of that game is a conversation on the mechanical narrative layer between Andrew and I about the workings of anarchism, right? We posited some questions about those things. And so, you know, watch that if you're curious about watching two anarchists play a role-playing game together and sort of stealthily discussing whether anarchy is a viable method of human interaction. Okay. All right. Clay. It's pronounced Clay. Thank you. I appreciate that. If you have a strange, unpronounceable Chthonian username, telling me how to pronounce it ensures that I will pronounce it correctly. Have I ever had anyone, King O'Brien is asking, have I ever had anyone hit me with the everyone has equal rights, so why are these movements still a thing? Because every time someone says that to King Oberon, they get stunned. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a thread that runs through the pushback on things like Black Lives Matter, where people in a position of privilege have historically responded to the idea of things like feminism, Black Lives Matter, movements that highlight the marginalization of specific groups. They looked at them and said, well, there's legislation in place to protect these people. You know, we voted for laws that make racism go away, so racism is gone. So everyone is in a position where we're all the same now. Feminism doesn't need to exist because gender inequality is illegal. But the thing that people don't recognize when they think about these things sometimes is that the systems that created the legislation for those things are inherently part of the problem as well. And this is tied to, you know, my inherent sort of distrust of state-based politics and, you know, overarching systems of power. There's some of my anarchy showing here, but I think that highlighting marginalized people as needing support and energy above the requirements of other people is healthy and valid. I think that it's important to elevate people so that we are all equal. And it doesn't mean lifting everybody all at once. It means taking the people who are the most marginalized and giving them support so that we balance these things out. Equality isn't real yet. It's a philosophical hope, and we can work for it, but it's going to take more than everybody getting the same benefits, because even though there is legal stuff in place to encourage that, it's really only the first step. So yes, I've definitely heard that kind of thing, but I think it's naive to think that we're done. And I think that's really important to think about, like today, especially, because this struggle has been going on for a very long time. And there are people who have suffered and died for equality, true, actual equality. And I think that fight is still going on. I think that we're still having those things happen. Let's see. The Chibi asks, have you ever had someone non-LGBT refuse to use the word queer or any other term they disagree with? And if so, have you dealt with it? I don't like it when people I don't know use that word to describe me. It is a self-identifier. It's a slur for most people. And if I don't know you, don't refer to me as a queer, even if I do it. I'm not going to get mad, right? I'm going to be like, hey, like, we don't really know each other, and I don't know you, and I don't know what you mean by that term, but it takes very little for me to be okay with it, right? Like, I can get over that hump pretty quick. But I think recognizing that, like, queer especially is a politically charged term, I use it for that reason. I acknowledge that it makes people uncomfortable. I get that it has a history of violence behind it, and part of what I want to do by identifying that way is make people a little unsettled, is make them think like, oh, that's not a word I'm allowed to say. so that they'll engage, so that they'll interrogate those feelings. So for me, I have a complicated relationship with the word queer, as it's a bit of a sharp stick. I often go back to there's an image. I saw it first, I think, as a stencil on some, like a graffiti stencil of a picture of a woman in I think an apron holding a gun, and it says "Not gay as in happy, but queer as in fuck you," and that always makes me smile, because again, I'm protected by all these layers of being in a position of privilege, that I can talk about my queerness aggressively without being threatened most of the time. So that's a thing. Yeah. So Kaylee, you didn't at me, but I see your question, Kaylee. So Kaylee acknowledges that this question might be phrased in an uncomfortable way or a difficult way. So I'll try to parse what you mean by your question, Kaylee. I'm sorry if I get it wrong, but most animosity between members of LGBT plus and heterosexual individuals is seen as one way. Straight people hate gay people in general. Okay, I get what you're saying. I don't think that most straight people hate gay people. I think that's definitely that most of the violence is one way. I think you're definitely right in that regard. In your experience, is there hatred from LGBT people towards heterosexual people just because they're straight and different? I mean, yeah, I think that it's tough because straightness is the default. And I think that most gay people go through a period of being treated as if they're straight, and as such have a better understanding of what it's like to maneuver through a straight world as a straight person, and so are less likely. I think that LGBT people have reactionary negative feelings towards straight people because of the way that some straight people have treated them. I think it's important to treat individuals as individuals, right? Just because I have been the victim of emotional violence from straight people. Hi, Clockbound. Welcome. Because I've been the victim of emotional violence from straight people, it does make me feel generally more wary around those kinds of people. But I recognize that this straight person, right, is not that one that hurt me or that one that marginalized me. And I have to do the labor to recognize that. I think what happens is that institutionalized violence flows one way and is much more visible in that direction. I don't think that you can be, for example, racism, you can be prejudiced against a person regardless of the color of their skin. You can be like, I don't like all white people. For whatever your reason, it sucks. Don't do that. It's prejudice, but it's not racism, because racism is about systemic violence. It's about the structures of power that are in place to marginalize certain kinds of people. And I think that homophobia works the same way. There's no heterophobia because homophobia relies on structural pressure. That being said, individual hate, individual violence is definitely a thing, and I wouldn't discount individual cases of it. I think we should avoid all personal violence. I think I think we can agree on that. I think that's important. Yeah. Dave would like to know, how is Babby formed? I don't know. Ask the Luigi board how to get Pregante, Dave. The Luigi board will tell you. Let's see here. Does Bruno Mars is gay? I don't know, personally. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask him how he identifies. Arokiel is asking, let's see, Adam, what do you think of the use of the word hatred to label opinions that, while not in any way positive, don't constitute an extreme dislike, aversion? So I think that, so we're talking about hate as a thing, and I think that political hate is one thing, right? This is like neo-Nazism, Zionism, racism, acts of homophobia, gay bashing, these things. Political hatred, I think, is one definition of that word. I think emotional hate is a different thing. They're often connected. People who emotionally hate something are often acting politically in a position of hatred towards those things. But I do think that they're different. And I think that words can mean lots of different stuff. It's really fucking confusing if you don't speak English, but there's nuance to language. Yeah. Yeah. That's a thing. That's definitely a thing. Let's see. Billy Guy is asking, how do you define anarchism? I feel like its meaning gets kind of muddled. Yes. So, I mean, that's true. So anarchy and anarchism, I think for me, is about non-governance and about community, right? It's about no individual person. And so my anarchism stems from my relationship politics, right? Like I've always been, like I said, I've always been politically left, but I've really only connected with anarchism through a combination of like philosophical nihilism and personal relationships, like relationship anarchy as a concept. So for me, everything comes from an internal relationship structure. Tucker, welcome back. Thank you. So for me, it's about deflating hierarchies. It's about existing in a place where no person has authority over any other person unless that authority is willingly given to that person, right? Like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, if he were to come to my house and say, give me $10 because I'm the prime minister, I would say, no, Justin, no, you have no authority over me, right? I didn't engage the political system that put you in power. I mean, I did engage the political system. I voted because not voting is dumb, even if you're an anarchist. But I believe that it's about only giving people authority and consenting to being governed. I think it's totally okay to say, you know more about this than me, right? Like there are ways in my personal life, there are ways that I allow other people to govern my behavior because I consent to it. Like I consent to JP having authority over some decisions that I make about roleplay because we've entered into that agreement. I consent to allowing him to make decisions that override my own personal choices sometimes. Not 100%, not all across the board, but that for me is an aspect. Anarchy is about consent for me. And I think that it's about not ever letting anything govern your behavior, anyone govern your behavior, or never governing anyone else's behavior without their permission. So that's the thing. Nihilism enters into it too, but I don't want to get too deep into that. That gets all like 1800s Russia mess. So that's a thing. Let's take a look. So Nathaniel Forlorn, I'll try to work out your question here. So Nathaniel identifies as a straight cis male. There's a regular queer identified party in the space that Nathaniel occupies, and it's pretty cool. Yes, queer people hold great parties most of the time, in my experience. And Nathaniel's friends go there decently often. Nathaniel's gone there before, and is kind of afraid to go again. It's definitely quite a flirtatious environment, and don't know how to handle the situation when approached. And you're having difficulty. So you're having difficulty identifying someone's gender in a space where gender fluidity is probably encouraged, right? Queer spaces tend to encourage that stuff. So here's another thing, Nathaniel, and this should be a short answer. Here's another thing that queer spaces tend to encourage, and that is asking questions. If you're not sure of a person's gender because you're not sure how to respond to them, ask. Have that conversation. Ask them what their pronouns are, right? Be respectful, right? Don't ask just because you have this idea of like, I don't want to flirt with you if you are identifying as anything other than a cis woman, right? You're doing it kind of backwards. If you go at it that way. I think that what you need to recognize is that you're a stranger in this space and acknowledge your own ignorance and ask questions, but don't make people do emotional labor. And if people flirt with you and you're not interested in them for whatever reason, tell them, right? Just say like, I appreciate the attention. I'm into the fact that you like me, but I'm not feeling the chemistry. That's okay. It's not homophobic to say no and to have boundaries around that stuff. In the same way we wouldn't expect or shouldn't expect gay people to pretend that they're straight just to fit in. Ask questions. Be respectful. Be a nice person. It's easy. Niren, how do you feel about portraying minorities and the marginalized as assholes or villains when you GM? Yeah. So this is tricky. So Dr. Grigori, I'm taking off my sweater because this Q&A is getting warm. Dr. Grigori was a big old homo. Dr. Grigori was very gay. He was super gay. He expressed his gay feelings in very fucked up sociopathic ways. He was, in his own weird way, he was in love with a character whose gender was the same as his, and tried to express those feelings in kind of a fucked up way. He was a bad person and he was gay, but those two things were never in my mind connected. He didn't, and this is a thing that you can do when portraying characters. Don't make their villainy a product of their gayness, right? I wasn't like, cool, I'm going to play a gay villain who's villainous because he's a homosexual, right? I'm not going to be like, he's an evil gay because in the past when he realized he was gay, it made him turn bad. Like, it's not about that. It's not about that. It was just that he was gay and he was also a horrible, horrible person. And I try to separate those two. Rajani Van Dorn is another good example of, she was a lesbian and is a lesbian. Past tense. I guess we'll find out at the one shot. So Rajani, lesbian, also bad person, not connected. You know, I'm all for acknowledging, and I definitely think that when you're playing a game, you should acknowledge a character's sexuality and gender identity is important to who they are, but you don't want to be like, cool, their gayness is part of their villainy. I think that's like very high tier character creation, GMing, character management. That's hard to do. I think it can be done, but I also think it's very dangerous if you do it wrong. I think that it can be mishandled so easily, and I'm not a good enough GM. I'm not a good enough creative person to do that safely. Yeah. I think that's a real thing. Keeters asks, what is my favorite place to get ramen in Seattle? Oh God. I've only been to a couple of, if this was a question about New York, I could answer it better, or even Tokyo, but I've only been to a couple of ramen places. There's a place on Cap Hill called, it's got two different names. It's in my vlog. The vlog will be out in a couple hours. You can see video of it there. It's called like Kakui, or there's another name for it. That one. They have the most amazing Japanese pork buns. They do this like, oh, so good. I want to talk about it. It's gonna make me hungry. Michael Wolf, have I seen the series Adam Ruins Everything? If so, what do you think about it? I have not seen it. Emily watched a bunch of it, and she keeps saying that it reminds her of me because the guy's name is Adam and kind of looks like me, and has kind of a cynical viewpoint about some stuff. But I haven't watched it myself. I hear it's good though. I hear it's good. Let's take a look. Man, y'all have some good questions. This is fun. I hope you're enjoying this. It's a weird thing for me, so I hope you're digging the hangout times. Nanosphere asks, how do you deal with when you say, hey, please don't use that word because we don't know each other? So referring to what I was talking about before about queerness. Don't use that word because we don't know each other. And they say free speech. I can say what I want. So free speech, again, this is the legal versus the real. Free speech legally protects certain kinds of speech. I like living in Canada where hate speech isn't protected that way. So I can say, guess what, motherfucker? This is Canada. You can't just go around saying whatever hateful bullshit you want. And that's when I call Justin Trudeau and I'm like, Justin, put your shirt on. Come over here and fight this guy for me. But I think that's a flimsy fucking defense, right? Because it's not about, it's like, yes, okay, here's how that interaction would go. Hi, I'm Adam. Hi, I'm some douchebag. You're that queer I know about. So actually, I don't know you, and so that makes me really uncomfortable when you talk about me like that. Yeah, well, free speech. Yeah, well, this conversation's over. Get the fuck out of my face. And we're done. Scene, right? Now, because I have a community to think about, because you, my lovely folks, have people coming into this space and being that way sometimes, my general preference is to engage, to be like, we don't know you, so let's talk about the use of the word queer. Would you like to engage in some discourse? Why, yes, I would like to engage in some discourse. Thank you. Let's discourse. Right? Sometimes it's just like, meh, free speech, fuck you, in which case they can go away. But that doesn't happen that often, to be honest. I think that free speech doesn't mean there's no consequences, and consequences often are get the fuck out of my community. And that goes back to the whole idea of anarchy, in that we have these self-defined consent-based communities where we all agree to be here. We agree to behave a certain way because that's what we all want. We've all consented to it. And when someone refuses to engage in the norms of the community, we as a community can say, we don't consent to your being here. You are no longer invited. And that's a thing. That's a thing we can do. Let's see. A lot of good conversation. Hashtag not all straight people. Yeah. Question from Blue Jay. Hi, Blue Jay. You say you're protected by your privilege, so you can talk about your queerness. Do you think people in similar positions who are fortunate enough not to broadcast the ways in which they are not default have responsibility to broadcast that difference? I can't tell anybody what is or is not their personal responsibility. Fundamentally, that would be violating... I don't govern them. That would be violating their self-authority. I would like them to do that. I would like people to be able to be out about the ways in which they deviate from the norm, because I'd like to destroy the norm. I would like to burn down the idea that there's this median human that exists in the 18 to 35 white straight male category. There are so many people who are so different from one another in so many different ways that the more we celebrate diversity, the more that we're open about our diversity, the better the entire fucking world is going to be. The more beautiful the entire universe is for us as people occupying a communal space together. But I also get that you don't have to do that, because fuck what I want, right? I'm just one person with an opinion. And my opinion is that diversity and being out and clear about these things makes life better. But that might not be true for you or whoever it is that feels their deviance from normativity is going to put them in danger or cause them trouble. And this is why, and I'm not saying that Anne feels like threatened by the fact that she's lesbian. Obviously she doesn't. But it's a different, she has different feelings about this stuff. She prioritizes this stuff differently. And that's why I loved having her on that panel, because not everyone agrees. Not everyone feels the same way. And that's okay. I would love it if we were all celebrated for our differences, but I get that not everybody cares about that stuff, and that's fine. I'm an activist at heart. I believe that everything that I say and do is a statement of political intent, but not everyone feels that passion for that thing. Everybody has their own shit that they're passionate about, and that's more important to me. Crypt Keeper, when did you first realize that you were not heterosexual? I mean, there's no revelatory moment. I don't know about the rest of you. Whatever you are, whatever, like, if you deviate from the norm by way of gender, by way of sexuality, whatever your identity, I don't know about you, but I never had a revelatory moment. I was never just like, wait a second, I'm not straight. It never happened. It's not a thing. It happens gradually, and my identity changes and fluctuates over time. I identified as bisexual for a really long time. But then I felt more and more like that didn't adequately describe my place in the world. And so trying to find another way to identify, I stumbled into queer as an identity that felt right. But maybe I'll find something that describes me better, right? Identity is flexible. So there's no moment of revelation. You can be who you are when you are and let yourself be something different later. It's totally okay. You're allowed. So Ram Helsing asks, as a white man, have you ever felt hypocritical talking about the struggles of non-white men, as we have the ability to empathize but not realize the problem? I don't know that I've ever felt, and you're asking a person like, are you a hypocrite? Who is self-aware enough to say, yes, for sure. I mean, for me, the way that I try to get at topics like racism is not to pontificate about them, not to be like, well, As a white man, let me tell you about racism, because what the fuck do I know about racism? I could be incredibly well read. I could be woke as fuck about how structural racism works and exists, but I've never personally experienced it. So what I try to do at least, is highlight other people and amplify their voices, right? Say, I don't know fuck all about this. At a personal level, I can clinically discuss it, but let's talk to people who have had these experiences and who consent to exposing themselves to those things. Weimer, you're welcome. You're welcome. Freckled Wonder 90. Any chance of doing a video explaining what anarchism means to me? Sure, definitely. Yeah. That's totally a thing. Also, yeah, I'm way behind. I know. I'm catching up. Let's see. Rick and Harp asks, this might be a stupid question, but being a relationship anarchist, do you consider yourself single? I reject the concept of coupledness and singleness as defining identity factors for me. I have people that I care about. I experience love and attraction, but I wouldn't, like, if somebody asked, like, the purpose of singleness is to indicate externally that you are available for dating or whatever, right? It's a flag to say, like, get in here, let's do this thing. And I try to reject that kind of hierarchy. It's not part of my emotional or practical landscape for relationships. Relationship anarchy is a big part of how I treat people. It's an ethos for me, and I definitely am going to do a video on it soon, because I definitely think it's important. It's an important part of who I am, and I never really talk about it. So yeah, I want to do that more. Let's see here. Ty Martinez says, as a straight white male, how do you think heterosexual people can support LGBT without looking like they're looking down and just giving the LGBT community what they want, even though we may not like it? Listen, okay, so first of all, here's an example. I want $20. And if somebody gives me $20, I'm not going to be like, you're only giving me this $20 because I want it, right? This is the climate change argument. There's a New Yorker comic, and it's two people describing a New Yorker comic. Jesus Christ. So there's a New Yorker comic, and it's two people at a climate change convention or talk or whatever. And there's a scientist on the stage talking about, he's looking at the earth and it says climate change or whatever. It's obviously like a climate change scientist, and he's talking about it. And one of the guys in the audience is saying, yeah, but what if it's fake? And then the other guy is saying, well, I guess we'll just end up with a better world anyway. Like, we'll put all this effort in, and what are we going to get out of it? Like, a better world. So, like, it's the same thing. Like, if you want to contribute to making the world a safer place for the gays, do it. Don't question whether you're doing it for the wrong reasons. There's no wrong reason if the end result is the world is a safer place for people to be who they are. I think that what people can do is stand up to their peers, right? Like the biggest thing, and this is an easy thing, you can do this today, you can do this right now. When your other straight male friends use like homophobic language or talk about misogynistic violence in the wrong context, right? If you're playing a game, let's say you're playing Counter-Strike with your friends, and one of your buddies kills the last counter-terrorist. They kill that counter-terrorist, and they're like, yeah, we totally raped that team. What a bunch of fags. Your job in that immediate moment, as a person who gives a fuck about making the world not a terrible place, is just to say to your friend, whoa, man, like, what the fuck? That is not okay to talk like that. Like, get excited about winning, but like, Jesus, buddy, that's not all right. Like, call that shit out and try to be better at it. Find ways to do it that feel obviously like safe for you, but take a risk, gamble on that stuff, because if your friends are really your friends, you'll be able to have that conversation with them about that. So that's the thing. Do that today. Start now. Don't let people get away with being shitty. That's the jam. Let's see. Calamari asks, how far do you take empathy before you just tell somebody to fuck off? Speaking specifically of family, people you want to empathize with, who you hope can empathize with others. Gosh, how much emotional energy do you have? How many spoons do you have for this task? Never push yourself harder than is safe for you. Consider your mental health, consider your physical safety, consider these things, and erect that boundary where feels good for you. Say no when it stops being safe. Don't push yourself too hard. Don't put yourself in a position where you're in danger emotionally or mentally or physically, just to try to change someone's mind about being a dirtbag. Some people want to be dirtbags, and it's cool to have empathy for dirtbags, but just because they're your family, or just because they're a former friend, or just because they're somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend that you care about, doesn't matter. Your safety is the most important thing. And as long as you're not harming anyone else, protect yourself first. So let your own empathy with yourself feel out where that stuff is. Let's see. Lots of flirting. This is obviously the thing where I was talking about relationship anarchy. Quacklad came back. Thank you, Quacklad. I'm sorry I didn't see your re-up earlier. Let's see what else you got. Dr. Toad. Who is your favorite demon and why is it Pazuzu? I mean, demons aren't real. I'm sorry to break it to you, Dr. Toad. Demons aren't real, but it definitely would be Pazuzu. And because Pazuzu is the funnest to say. All right, so people are talking about Gallahan and Grigori. Yeah, he was so gay for Gallahan. He was so in love with Gallahan. Sheminator came back. Welcome back. Let's see here. Flitterish, do you try to avoid tropes like the betraying bi person and lesbian death? This is about portraying villainous LGBT characters in role-playing games. Yeah. I mean, I try to avoid all tropes. It's impossible. This is one way in which I am trying to both be inspired by the media that I love and also be better than it, because the things I'm inspired by are often problematic trash in some ways. So working on it, but being aware of those tropes. And go look these up, right? Look up lesbian death, look up, these things. You can see how it affects the awareness of these tropes affects my playthroughs too. I won't spoil, even though it's been out forever, I won't spoil the end of Life is Strange, but being aware of queer tropes in video games and movies and TV shows, that I chose the ending of that game for that reason. Can I fix your parents' Wi-Fi connection? Not from here, Duan. Sorry, that's your job. Lil Deek, is your face naturally red? Is it your camera, or are you having a party in your apartment? I have rosy cheeks to begin with. I'm a little smushy baby. That's definitely a thing. Yep. Let's see. The Hippie resubscribe. Thank you, The Hippie. I like your seagull. Adish IP. Adiship. Oh my god. Well, you'll be digesting that for a while. Welcome to the squad. Let's see here. People talking about Justin Trudeau putting his shirt back on. Yes. Our prime minister likes to take pictures with his shirt off. He's all over the place. Do you think you'll ever, Sweevy asks, do you think you'll ever get to engage in one of the more politically ambitious RPGs? Red Raven, welcome back. Thank you. You think you'll ever get to engage in one of the more politically ambitious RPGs in your shows? Dog Eat Dog, Jordan, Bluebeard's Bride, etc. Probably. I could see space for that on Roll20 Presents, for sure. Also, we've been known occasionally to stream other role-playing games just like right here on Twitch, on my channel. So yeah, like one-offs and stuff here. I could definitely see that being a thing. Yeah. Evil Tribble is thanking me for doing the Q&A. You're welcome. You can thank the IRL category for making this a thing that we can do. I wanted to reconnect with the community today, and and I think this is a nice way to do it. I know we're like way over. I was like, I'll do this for 15 minutes, but I'm actually having a really good time. I always worry about this kind of content. Like I see Brooke doing, like Saturday Morning Dooger, and I'm like, well, that seems super fun. I would love to hang out and chat with people and do something like that. But like, that's Dodger. She's got some fans. She's got a lot of fans. I remember hanging out with Dodger the first time in real life at I think PAX East, and Sam and Dodger and I were trying to get from one place, from the like Maker booth back when she was still doing stuff for Maker, from that booth, or Polaris, it was Polaris, trying to get from Polaris to food. And I was like, all right, I got like an hour before my panel. We can get some lunch and whatever. And it took the whole hour to get to lunch because she is so popular. I love Dodger. I love her so much. And apparently many of you do as well. So I see Dodger doing content like that. And I'm like, I can't, I'm just a little guy. But thank you for making me feel better about that. Let's see. All right. Let's take a look at some questions. 0 to 42. What are some of my recommended books? Okay. So I'm boring. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. But I do have some nonfiction that I liked. I really liked, and I'm not gonna be able to remember the titles of anything because my brain is a vast empty wasteland. The maelstrom took all my memories. Okay. There's a book about the walled city, or no, not the walled city, about, God, what is the name of that? It's in Hong Kong. They've torn it down now, but it used to be this like enclosed neighborhood in Hong Kong. Fuck, what was it called? I'm gonna look it up. Enclosed city. Yeah, there it is. It was called Kowloon Walled City. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, so Kowloon Walled City. There's a book about that called, I guess while I'm looking this up, book Kowloon. The book is called. Okay, I can't find it, but it was fucking awesome. So that was a topic I thought was particularly interesting. I'm all about, when I read nonfiction, I like reading nonfiction about China. China is fucking fascinating. Modern China, historical China. But I can give you some actual suggestions for nonfiction. So you want books to read right now. Okay. Go read the Raj trilogy. Starts with Ancillary Justice. Read that book. Read the Southern Reach trilogy. Starts with Annihilation. So fucking good. It's like a modern kind of reimagining of Stalker. Definitely read that. Read Pattern Recognition. Read Dune. If you haven't read Dune, get on it. It's great. You should read. God, what else? There's so many good books in the world. I really liked bits and pieces, but not necessarily all of N.K. Jemisin's fantasy trilogy, the Thousand Kingdoms, I think it was called, something like that. I didn't like all of the trilogy, but there are really good bits and pieces in there. So definitely check those out. I'm gonna get to this part in the chat where you're all like, "This is the name of the book you were trying to think of, dummy." But we'll get there when we get there. Let's see. Comrade Brain asks, have you seen the video that Matt Mercer shared about GMs that watch RPG shows like Critical Role having that "I will not be good enough" reaction? No. I have only seen bits and pieces of the work of Mr. Matt Mercer. But I understand that he is very smart. We've had conversations about GMing that has led me to believe that motherfucker knows what's going on. It's the real like criminal fate. It's the dire fate of being a content creator, is that you often don't have the opportunity to absorb the things that your friends make as much as you want to. I would love to watch Critical Role, but I'm making things, and there's so much media in the world that I just bits and pieces, highlight reels. But on the flip side, I am incredibly lucky. Oh no, you're dead. Oh no, I'm sorry.
I'm incredibly lucky that I get to play games with Matt instead sometimes, and that for me is that's the other thing. That's the flip side of that. I have that beautiful opportunity. Does it say Membrate? Welcome to the squad, Membrate. All right, let's see what else you got. What else you got for me? Do you believe stand-up comedy is protected by free speech? Oftentimes, Mac the Machine will resubscribe 4 times, in fact. Welcome. Oftentimes, hateful things in the context of a comedy club are told in the frame of jokes. It's considered a form of art, like a movie, where if you don't like the message, you should walk out and not listen. Do you think people have a right to try and silence that performance based on the idea that a comic said something that offends them? So, I don't believe that anyone, anywhere, ever gets to say what anyone else ever, anywhere gets to say. My inner anarchist would never step on the liberty of a person to say whatever hateful bullshit they want to say. They can be as wrong as they want, as loudly as they want. I don't want them to, but I would never in a million years expect the state to come down on them for doing such a thing. Fuck that, right? Free speech exists to protect people's rights to say the things that they want to say, however fucking ill-informed they might be. But I think it's socially irresponsible to be hateful. I think that humor is powerful. I think that humor is important, and I think that you can punch in the right direction. I think that if we're going to be hateful about anything, we should be looking above us. We shouldn't be looking down. This is where the whole punching up thing comes from. This is why I love George Carlin, right? George Carlin liked to make jokes at the expense of God. I mean, you can make fun of fictional entities all you want, but God and the church, the state, of business, right? He was for the most part a pretty good up puncher. And I think that if we want to be hateful to anything, we should be hateful towards the structures that imprison and fuck with us. I think the thing with comedy is that, yeah, like if you think that it's hateful, if you think someone is expressing hateful beliefs by way of comedy, using comedy as a shield, if you care about comedy, you care about people's right to be funny about dark shit. You need to recognize that hateful speech being protected by comedy is making comedy bad. It is ruining a thing you love. I mean, you shouldn't let Nazis make jokes because fascism is not a joke. But I also get that, like, people have the right to say what they want. I also have the right to say what I want about that and to not listen and to encourage others not to listen. You can belong to a community, as we all do, many communities, that has standards around the kinds of things that are okay and not okay. I would never spend my time or energy or money on a person that behaves that way, but I would also never expect the state to come down on them for being verbally shitty. It's a complex subject. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, but that's my feeling. That's my feeling on the matter. Let's see if there are more questions. I bet you there definitely are. Peluche asks, do you think it's responsible to believe in a political system that they also believe is not realistically viable during their lifetime? Hi, I'm an anarchist. Capitalism and Western democracy is very powerful. I still don't believe in it. I believe in the power of self-governed small community. I'm not going to live to see an anarchist revolution, but I can still believe that it's got power. That's a thing. Yeah. XP is overrated. Asks, do you think similar to what Twitch did with the LGBT talk, they could do something on mental health? Obviously no direct correlation between these. I mean, yeah, like medically, it's not like all gay people are suffering from mental health issues, but often the mental health issues that would be undiagnosed in people in a more normative place in society end up becoming diagnosed and tied up in LGBT identity. I mean, I know a lot of queer people that suffer from mental health issues, but I also think that as a group, queer people, LGBT people tend to be more aware of their own thoughts and feelings in the world because they're ostracized in a lot of ways for them, and so can pick up on that stuff internally. But yeah, totally. I think race, I think politics, I think mental health, I think sexism, I think feminism, I think all of these things, gay stuff, they all have space in Twitch, in the cultural discourse that we engage in. Yeah, totally. Let's take a look. Let's get up to some more modern stuff. Je suis une barrière. I am a bear, spelled with A-E. Je suis says, I've been dating my girlfriend 5 years now. She's bi and out to her family. They're amazingly supportive. That's awesome. But she isn't out to my mostly conservative family, so there are topics I can't really talk about with my family. Yep, that's a thing. So I feel I have to censor myself with my family in a way I never thought I would have to. Just would like to hear your thoughts on it. No real question. It sucks. Those are my thoughts. I'm sorry that your family isn't a safe place for your girlfriend to be who she is. And I'm sorry that that affects you. And I really, really hope that it doesn't bring any negativity into your relationship. That also sucks. I think the only thing I really think about this is, because you didn't ask for advice, I'm not going to give it. I have empathy for you. I feel for you. Yeah, that's real. Let's see. Night Eyes with so many S's says, okay. So I try to speak out with my uni friends, but the course is very much straight white males. They're the kinds of people who are like, stop being so sensitive, and they're the closest friends from that group. No, I have strong views, but I will voice. But how do I go about like not quite toning it down, but changing the way I sound, say something to sound less whiny and more dude, not cool, without also being chill about it, because I'm not chill about gross language. Okay, so fuck them for policing your tone, right? Your anger, your frustration, your fervor gives you power. And I hate that. I hate that tone policing. I hate that. Like, look, we could talk about this if you just calm down. That deserves like so much more anger. So I hear you. I see you. Your anger is real. Your frustration is real. Those are powerful things. Night Eyes, don't let them step on you. I also understand that in wanting to engage, sometimes you need to reevaluate how you engage. I don't know. I don't want to tell you to chill. I don't think you should. I think you should stay angry. God, I struggle with it myself. You're going to find what feels an okay amount of toning that down for you in any given situation, but don't extinguish that fire. Don't let it go away, because they're the ones that need to change, not you. The Dirkster with the hard-hitting questions. Does life have meaning? No, it does not. Inherently. However, nothing has meaning inherently. Objectivism is false. We can create subjective meaning by giving a fuck about stuff. I give a fuck about this conversation. Many of you do too. Ergo, it has meaning. That's it. Whatever you care about it. That's a thing. That's a thing you should do. Let's see here. Talking about Doogs. Yeah, she's great. She's real great. I like her a lot. Let's see.
Our illustrious champion returns.
Yes, welcome back. Letter confused Batman. So Niren says, do you feel it'd be best to allow language to develop different connotations? And then gives an example of South Park attempting to redefine a term that South Park has no right to redefine. Or would it be best if we eliminated terminology that presently considered offensive? So offensive, it's not really about offensive. I try to avoid using that term. Like, if somebody says something shitty, let's call it what it is. Hi, Laura, welcome to the squad. Let's call it what it is. So if somebody uses a racist slur, that's not offensive, that's violent, right? That is shitty and violent and bad. Let's call it what it is. I think that the people who have suffered from that kind of verbal onslaught have the right to redefine it and reclaim it. I think reclaiming terminology is powerful. It's real powerful. I have tried in some small way to do it with queerness, with embracing queer as a thing. But I'm riding on the backs of generations of people who have done that before me. I am at the easier end of this. You see it across cultures, you see it across races. People reclaiming things is powerful and should be done by the people who suffer from those things, not by Matt and Trey. I get what they're trying to do, right? Like, they're not being harmful, but they're overstepping their bounds in trying to do that. Yeah, I think being aware of that is a thing. Let's take a look. People are digging what we're doing today. That makes me happy. Yeah, I like this. I like this IRL business. I like it. It's good stuff. Let's take a look here. Keeters, yes, I mentioned the Seattle ramen place. Just look at the top one on Yelp. It's that one. Go get your lunch. Talking about books. Darth Zombie, have you ever read the Shadowrun novels? I read one and it was so bad. Like sub R.A. Salvatore bad. And R.A., buddy, I know that we're throwing a lot of shade at you this week. You do you. People are buying your books, bro, but Drizzt is not well written as a character or as a series of novels. However, you're better than the Shadowrun novels. I'll tell you that. Zendivia asks, what do you think about channels turning into personality cults? I feel like if a channel becomes too insular, it limits discussion. We try to avoid that. I mean, if y'all want to be a cult, I could go for some surplus. I could go for some augury. I will come to you for advice and take +1 forward when acting on it. I will be your hocus baby. But I don't know. I mean, personality cult, like we're not talking about, I don't think that applies until you get to a certain scale, right? Like even the highest levels of cultish behavior on Twitch will never match what an actual personality cult in real life was like. No one here is Chairman Mao, right? So I think it's just people are popular. People care about popular people's opinions. People with popular opinions become popular and get people to care about them. But we all have different stuff to say, and we all develop our own audience and people that exist in that space together. Folks talking about Matt Mercer. Can I say this about Critical Role? I didn't see the episode, and I don't know what it's about, but I'm so excited that Critical Role is exploring introducing non-binary characters into the game. That's for you, Critical Role. Fucking yes, give her, do it. That's very much a thing that I feel. We should all do it. We have the power to diversify our universes in role playing. Let's do it. A lot of people talking big ups about George Carlin. Yes, Nazis are stupid. It's true. It's true. Feebles says, just listening to your chat on free speech and what you said about hate speech, what's your stance on no platforming and where do you draw the line? I mean, I don't care about political parties. I don't care about party politics. I don't care about partisanship. All of that stuff is so fucking boring to me. I care about people treating each other with respect and decency in their communities, according to their community's behavior, and excising things from those communities that are harmful. And I think that's all it is. It's creating a consensus around what is okay in my community and what isn't. Question Emu asks, where can an asexual relationship anarchist go for more information? Oh shit. Okay, this is great. I have a perfect answer for this question. There's a website, Question Emu. I hope you're still in the channel. I hope you haven't left. There's a website called The Thinking Asexual. I'm gonna go so far as to grab it and put it to you in a DM because it's too good. And The Thinking Asexual talks about let me see here, relationship anarchy a lot, actually. Oh shit, they've marked. Okay, well, their blog is down. Go look it up. Try find the Wayback Machine. You'll be able to get at that thing. That's where you should go. Everybody should read it. Really interesting insights into non-monogamy and asexuality and why relationship anarchy supports asexual and aromantic people as a relationship structure. Kakari, how do I tell my family that a person I've been talking to online for years is coming down to visit me? They have no idea this person is coming and they're terrified of people on the interwebs. I know this doesn't have anything to do with the conversation, but I trust this group. Want to get your opinion. Well, so, I mean, it's hard for me because I grew up in a different internet. My internet was news groups and alt.games.whitewolf, and it was a very different space. The internet now is a much more populous place full of normos. It's not just the weird nerds anymore. But your parents probably grew up in a similar internet that I did, and they see it very differently. So, I mean, I don't know how much you care about, I don't know your situation. Like if you live with your parents, that's going to be a factor, right? What the nature of your relationship with this person is. If you are if you're in a position to give a shit about what your parents think or not, like obviously you are because you're asking. I think it's too broad a question to really be able to offer you any advice. But like, I'm gonna assume your parents love you. And I'm going to assume that you love and care about and respect them too. And people who love and care about and respect each other should be able to talk about stuff. And they should respect your desires and opinions while also working to keep you safe. Because that's their job as parents. Unless you're like 30, in which case their job is no longer to protect you and keep you safe. Their job is to be people that you can interact with. And if they're being shitty, then don't let them. But that's on you. That's about your relationship politics and your space with your family. It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing for sure. Cowboy Bebopper, how do I feel about the geopolitical ecosystem of the future? As a young American, I'm cautious about certain events possibly coming into fruition in the future. Are you worried or happy about the direction the world is going in? We are all gonna die. Shit is so fucked up. We are doomed. Climate change scientists have said shit is fucked. We need a new planet eventually. Like, we can turn our shit around and we can make it not get worse, but we can't fix some of the harm that we have done. We're fucked. But that's okay. It's okay. You know what? It's human civilization has always been a party at the end of the world. You begin a thing and you start counting down to its end. When you are born, you start dying. So, I mean, yes, it's terrifying, but all we can do is make the terrifying situation that we've been given better. Be cool to one another. That's all we can do. Billy Guy asks, thoughts on the concepts of nations and national pride? I say things like that are holding us back as a species. Yes. I mean, again, anarchism. Nations are not... Canada and America especially are way too fucking big to have one national identity. I am not proud of being a Canadian just because I live in Canada. I'm proud of being part of the communities I actually interact with. I can't interact with Canada. Canada's not real to me. Vancouver is more real. My neighborhood is real. My friendships and relationships are real. You're real. I'm proud of this. I'm more proud of Mathsquad than I am of Canada. I mean, to be fair, that's not hard. Mathsquad has never committed mass genocide before. Mathsquad doesn't enforce institutionalized racism. But also, I wasn't born into the Mathsquad. I merely adopted it. But be proud. I'm proud of smaller things. I'm proud of communities that are intentional and on purpose. I didn't earn being a Canadian. I just got born here. Norrental got that bourbon. I'm all about it. Drink that bourbon, Norrental. Let me see. Ooh, social anxiety. Yeah, let's talk about social anxiety. All right, so Dakiana, thank you for first of all being open about this. But Dakiana says, I tend to have weird social anxiety where I want to talk but don't because I'm so afraid of everyone else's thoughts. I'm hoping your chat feels like a comfy warm blanket to me. This works. Oh, since the chat feels like a comfy warm blanket. Okay, all right. Comfy warm blanket time for Dakiana. So I only ever come out to my SO, and it's terrifying to be around some of my family and friends and coworkers because I hear the hate speech they have for other LGBTQ people. How do you deal with that kind of thing day to day without being a little stress bug? That's my secret. I'm always stressed out. Like, I'm always a little anxious. I too, my friend, suffer from social anxiety. The way that I deal with it is performativity. The version of me that I am, and anyone, okay, so this is anyone who, I don't know if you know, Blue Jay or Trist or Elf or any of the folks that were at TwitchCon this year are in the chat still, but you can back me up on this. You can confirm. I'm way more shy in person. If I'm not on stage or in front of the camera, I am often the quietest person in the room. I don't start conversations easily. And if I do, I switch from the socially anxious version of me into the performative version of me that you're hearing now. And that can be jarring for people, I think. But it's a coping mechanism for me to have this performative. It's not a shell. It's not like it's not the real me. It's just a safer version of me that I can perform in the same way that sometimes straightness is a safer version of people that they perform, right? Or whatever. The thing that marginalizes them, people perform a different thing to protect themselves. And I think that happens. And it's sad. It's sad if that feels like it's hurting you. Right? If your performative shell is indeed a shell and a mask and it's not you and you have to pretend to be your not self, that can erode the person that you are. And so I feel that. I'm sorry that you feel that way, Dakiana. It's not your job to fix your coworkers or your family or your friends. It's their job to be decent humans, and you got to take care of you. Find allies, find people who are respectful and decent to LGBT folks and who you can be yourself around. Just because someone is your coworker doesn't mean they have to be your friend. Just because someone is your friend doesn't mean they need to keep being that way. Just because someone is part of your family doesn't mean they have to be your friend either. Like the relationships that we have, we should choose them. And I know that it's flipped to say like, just don't be friends with them, but you can do better. You don't have to come out to these people who are shitty. You can find better people to come out to, who will love you, for who they are. So thank you for trying that here. I appreciate that. Yeah. Talking about Shadowrun novels. Yeah, they're pretty bad. It's true. Many of them are really bad. Talking about identity labels, talking about Critical Role. Critical Role very early on had lesbian characters, gay characters. Yes, yeah, more gay adventurers. Duan says, in the panel, you talked about banning an emote if it's 95% used for racism. I think you were talking about the Trihex emote. No, I'm actually talking about an older Twitch emote that was more racist. Trihex gets used badly because Trihex is like one of the only people of color in the emote scheme. So it gets all that pressure. I was thinking of a different emote, but similar deal, right? If you make an emote of a swastika, people will use it to say bad things, but people will repurpose, Pepe the Frog, I'm looking at you, people will repurpose existing emotes for a negative purpose. If somehow, Mathsquad No Dad started getting used primarily in conversations surrounding something I didn't agree with, I'd probably kill it. That'd be a thing that I would do. Oh, look at all this discourse. Oh, you're talking about how we're all gonna die. Yeah, we will eventually. It's okay. Is there any chance you might come to a European con in the near future? I hope so. I'm going to Australia this year, so that's a first for me. I've been to Europe before. I went to an Italian tabletop RPG con in 2014. So yeah, I could see it. It'd have to be the right con. Let's see. Okay. So again, like I want to thank all of you for being present and vulnerable in these conversations, for being willing to open up about yourselves to strangers, to me, and then have me talk about it. So thank you for that. Lash the Snail particularly. Lash says, I feel attracted to both men and women, but only really emotionally attracted to women. Is that real, or just me being inexperienced or too scared to fully realize who I am? God, I don't know. I think that there's a difference between preference and identity. There are people who identify as bisexual, but who have never, ever been in a relationship with somebody of the same gender as them, or another gender, right? That there's a difference between in practice and identification, right? Like I've had relationships with people of all sorts of genders. I have a fairly limited amount of relationships. Only had a couple of relationships with people who are like cis men. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't again, but I just don't tend to find myself drawn to that particular gender as much. It doesn't mean that I'm not queer, right? You don't have a card that you have to check off boxes on to qualify for an identity. And attraction and sex and romantic feelings and love and friendship, they're all a broad and beautiful spectrum of human interaction, and you don't have to want to bone someone to feel attracted to them. You don't have to love someone to want to bone them, individual or on a gender level. None of that stuff matters. You identify with the way you want to identify, and you have relationships with the people you want to have relationships with, and you let them form in whatever organic way works for you and for the people that you're in love with or boning or not boning. You do you and give them space to do them, and then you do each other, and everything will be fine. Don't worry about policing your own identity. Figure out who you are and be that person. Yeah. That's what I think. Now Mathsquad is making jokes about how they're better than Canada. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Yep. There you go. Yep, Blue Jay caught it. Adam in person is different than Adam here.
Our illustrious champion returns.
It's true. It's true.
Welcome home.
Your name is so small. Is that Gargo Ame? It is. Hi. Welcome back. Let's see. Crazy LT Cadet, Lakey. Oh, I felt so shy when it was just you, Tristan, and I at lunch at TwitchCon. It was fun, but oh gosh, so nerve-wracking. Yeah, I mean, that's okay. I didn't feel bad about that interaction. I like letting people be who they are, and if that means being quiet and just hanging out, that is super all right with me. Talking about, yeah, I am behind in chat. It's true. It's true. Okay, we're talking about Australia. I'm getting caught up. We're almost done. I think I'm catching up with all y'all. Talking about Australia. Don't die in Australia. Go to CoxCon. Go to GamesCon. Yep. Let's see here. The flies are annoying in Australia. I'm terrified. It's so hot. I hate the heat. I hate it so much. Ooh, personal question time. All right, Clay has a personal question for me. I am okay talking about this, Clay, but before I do, I want to give everybody a chance to step out if this is a topic that's going to be upsetting for them, if they're going to have a hard time with it. We're going to talk very briefly about self-harm. Sorry, I got interrupted there. Zomb, welcome to the squad, my friend. But I'm going to repeat what I just said. So we're going to talk about self-harm a little bit, and if that is something that is going to make you feel uncomfortable, mute me. I'll give you 2 thumbs up when we're done talking about it. Okay. So, all right. And I'm not in the same space as chat right now. So if I miss anything, I'm sorry. Let's find Clay's question. So Clay's asking, it's a very personal question. If you're not comfortable answering, I completely understand. Have you ever dealt with self-harm of any nature, whether for yourself or with anyone else? Yes. Yeah, definitely. It is, something that, I wouldn't say, no, I don't struggle with it in the same way that I did as a teenager, and in my early 20s. Self-harm was definitely a byproduct of my depression, in that time. And as an outlet of that depression, it was something that I struggled with. I know other people who did as well. It's not the same as it used to be for me. I find self-harm to be a more subtle influence. When I'm feeling depressed, I tend to not take good care of myself. I don't eat as well as I should or at all. I forget to attend to myself as a person if I'm struggling with a sort of depressive period. But that's still self-harm, right? I'm still not treating myself with the care that I deserve because of depression. Yeah, it's a real thing. It's one of those things that I think got memed really hard, and that it became a joke for a lot of people who've never experienced it or don't know people that have. But it is super real. It is definitely a thing, and it's a way that people can react to mental health issues of all kinds. So I guess the answer is yes, that is a thing I've struggled with and that I have, for the most part, overcome. And what helped me overcome that when it was particularly bad was talking about it, was finding people that empathized with me that I could talk to, seeking counseling, and working through that. over time, being patient with myself. So that's the thing. All right, we're done talking about it. Self-harm conversation is over. Unless somebody just like immediately asks me another question about it. Let's see. All right, August. August Sunday asks for some advice specifically. Trying to increase creative output. August does comics, but find myself procrastinating a lot, getting jammed up. Do you have any methods you found over the years to keep creative output and avoid procrastination? Find a different thing. Find a different creative thing you can do and do that. So when I get stuck on role-playing game stuff, when I can't think of characters or narrative stuff, what I do instead is I go for a walk. I take pictures. Photography is my other creative endeavor, and that recharges me almost every time. There will always be something about it, whether direct or indirect, that'll bump me back into that space. So find another creative thing you can do, maybe something that's like a little less impactful or that requires a little less like lower stakes. Like if I take 1,000 shitty photos and I don't post them anywhere, I don't feel bad about it because it was about going out and taking pictures. That for me is what recharges me. So find that for you, whatever it looks like. All right, let's see. Cesius Cookies asking about trigger warnings in role-playing games. God, it's hard, right? Because, okay, so generally, if you're not aware of what a content warning or a trigger warning is, it's at the beginning of a piece of content, either the person who created it, or in my case, like the person streaming it, will mention, like we just did with the self-harm thing, I'll say, this game is probably going to contain these things. You know, I haven't played it through, but I've read that these are things in the game that might cause anxiety or might trigger people. And triggering is a real thing. It's a psychological thing. It's when an outside stimulus affects your ability to function. It can be tied to post-traumatic stress disorder. It can not have like an obvious connection. Phobias have some overlap with triggering, but it's a real thing. And so sometimes games contain stuff that will do that. What I will do if I'm playing a game is acknowledge that there are certain kinds of things that might come up in the game. And if they come up during the game, you know, we can stop and address them. But sometimes things happen by surprise, in which case I can only really attend to the VOD after the fact. Role-playing games are tricky because they're improvisational. So you have to talk about your stuff that triggers you either before you play, if you're engaging in a game with other people, or as it comes up, be willing to have that conversation. Apocalypse World is a great example of this, where something came up in the game where we were just like, let's not do this. Like, it can happen in the background, but we're just not going to do it, and we're going to move on. So that's a thing. Talk about it beforehand. Don't worry about ruining everyone's fun. If you're playing with people whose fun is ruined by your emotional well-being, those people need to fix their shit. So that's a thing. All right, my friends. I'm getting burned the fuck out. There's so many good questions. I love all of you for asking them. If I missed anybody in this thing, I'm super sorry. But yeah, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break. I'm gonna get some water. We're gonna rest my voice for a minute, and then we're gonna play some games together.